cleansing in Palestine has not stopped. Israel has expanded its illegal colonies around occupied Palestinian land, even if this policy is condemned, at least in speech, even by its closest partners. Israel has annexed land illegally and built settlements outside the borders acknowledged by the UN that declared them illegal. According to international analyst Pablo Joffre, the State of Israel has repeatedly violated the decisions, decrees, documents, and demands that compel it to stop the expansion on settlements, demolish what has been built, withdraw the forces that occupy it, demolish the wall of shame, and among other measures. The last resolution, number 2335 of the UN Security Council, passed on December 23rd last year, called this a crime of war and expressly stated that the Israeli settlements on the West Bank, Al-Quds, and the Golan Strip are a clear violation to international regulations. Nevertheless, the policy continues in 2018, and Israel approved the construction of 642 houses, the highest number since 2013. According to this NGO, in 2016, they gave green light to the construction of more than 2,000 units, and in 2018, 1,200 more. Because of this expansion, the Palestinian people protests and demands to return to their territory. We will analyze this from Chile. Nicolás Highway, who's an international analyst, pro-Palestinian activist. Welcome to Who La Crítica. How can we understand the day of Palestinian law, the right of the Palestinian people to go back to the land, versus the international inaction that does not go beyond a speech?
Leila, gusto saludarte.
Thank you, Leila. It's a pleasure to be here. It's impossible to understand from the origins what is happening in general in Palestine and how the situation of the day of its land arose. In the first place, we must understand that when United Nations divided Palestine, they were not capable of doing so because, according to its own charter, the United Nations was only capable of suggesting solutions. First point. Second point, UK offered and gave Palestinian territory away to a foreign power, a group of organizations that became a power but were not inhabitants of Palestinian land. And three, without consulting Palestinian people, without the participation of the Palestinian people in the United Nations resolution, they delivered the best lands to
no permitir que el pueblo palestino haga su vida normal, ¿no?
And this impeded the Palestinian people to carry out with their normal lives. Yes, the Palestinian people cannot carry on with their normal life, but this is why it resists and demands and has organized a march to go to its territories by installing tents. And what did they find? Not only containment, but a direct attack where we saw that they have killed more than a dozen of citizens. How can we name the state of Israel at this time in view of these facts? The Israeli state is a fascist entity, colonialist, whose force has perpetrated humanitarian crimes, and in this case specifically against Arab peoples, and specifically, namely the Palestinian people. This reality cannot be objected. The state of Israel is accustomed and is protected by the United States to commit these humanitarian crimes. United Nations have been coward enough, absolutely coward enough, of not imposing itself and not even assuring observance of its resolution as the creation of the state and the return of the Palestinian people to its lands. The Palestinian people, therefore, are reminding the United Nations with this demonstration the right they have to return to their own lands, because the Zionist state is filled with Jews that come from all over the world and are citizens of other nations, and nevertheless the Palestinian people that live meters away are unable to return. Therefore, this symbolic action of the Palestinian people that reminds the Zionist state and the United Nations that they are not willing and won't forget Palestine. And this is a very important fact, because the resistance is alive, and that is the key. Resistance. Resistance to Israel's immunity, resistance to humanitarian crimes, resistance to United Nations failure to act, and resistance to the resources of NATO and U.S. and European transnational. So the Palestinian people is not only opposing the Zionist action, but is also resisting imperialism that moves all its slaves, including several betraying traitor countries with Saudi Arabia at the head that collaborates with the United States. And what road does the Palestinian people have versus this failure to act by the international community, and as you called, is almost an accomplice? I think we lost contact with Nicola, but this is what Nicola Howard said from Chile, that there was complete failure to act by the international community versus what is happening against the Palestinian people. Nothing is observed. Resolutions made by United Nations General Assembly and the right of the Palestinian people is not protected. Essential rights, human rights, the right to live, to free transit, to many aspects that the international community tells us we must protect. When we talk about international community, we're referring to United Nations, but it is precisely the countries that are part of them, members. Where's the European Union defensor of human rights? Why can we say in such a blind way, or they pretend to be blind to omit the violation of these rights? Why don't they take action? Why don't they penalize a state that is violating human rights? And this is what we are asking Nicola. Why don't they act against this violation against human rights of the Palestinian people? Why don't they sanction that international community? The United States has proved to be an accomplice, but those who have placed a mask over themselves, the European Union, say nothing against the violation of these rights.
Leila, acá no existe
There are no human rights on this planet. Human rights are only and exclusively related to the interests of the United States and European nations. Let's not forget that the U.S. military complex is closely linked to the European military complex, and U.S. transnationals and European transnationals are connected to each other. So imperialistic interests, the interest of the poorly called so-called European community, because it is at the service of the United States, are completely linked. I'll give you an example to see, for you can see the immorality of Europeans. Sometime behind, we saw
El grupo terrorista el Estado Islámico en Charlie Hebdo, en el Bataclan, en las calles de París,
the Islamic terrorist group that killed more than 150 people. The response of the French state against that assassination was send their troops and protect the people diplomatically. That is their hypocrisy that we see in the West. So we must not think that there is some kind of reasoning. The United Nations has no more moral capacity. It is completely dominated by U.S. and transnational powers that compel them to act in their own interests, and this is the reality. We thank Nicola Hadwa, international analyst from Chile. This is a reality, and that was very well explained. The lack of action and flagrant violation of human rights against the Palestinian people. We saw in today's activities a simple protest has resulted in more than 12 youngsters died, and we can say that images have been clear of what still happens there. But the world is also expressing itself, and we see that in Spain there are several demonstrations, and we want to make contact with them because there are actions in protest and solidarity in favor of the Palestinian people and the flagrant violation of its rights. They say that these actions of protest that were aimed to establish tents to give an idea of the return of the Palestinian people until May 15th, but it was received with shooting. We make a contact with Spain, with Ruth Yonja, who is the president of the International Children's and Women's Tribunal, women affected by war and poverty. Welcome, Ruth, to Jugada Crítica. We wanted to listen to you about these protests that are performed in Spain, and how are they condemning the action and systematic attack by Israel against the Palestinian population. Good afternoon. I am talking from Madrid. We are vindicating the right of the Palestinian people, the right to their freedom, to their return, and as we saw today, we have proved Israel is a genocide state that violates all resolutions, all international agreements of human rights, the International Human Rights Charter, and the human rights of children. At this time, Israel has more than 60 resolutions against United Nations, which condemns them for all the crimes it has perpetrated with complete impunity against the Palestinian people. Today, this was a peaceful demonstration where Palestinians were claiming their right to return, which is an inalienable right. And as we saw, the Zionist state of Israel repeated what it has done over 100 years. Kill, murder, wound, and keep the Palestinian people from vindicating its rights. In Madrid, Spain, we are supporting continuously the Palestinian people for them to know that they are not alone. Palestinian people is a dignified people, and this dignity must be acknowledged by the world. This people has taught us all what respect is and what solidarity is. Those of us who are demonstrating here send our strong support to the Palestinian people. I personally would like to thank them for resisting and for existing. You are showing the strength to the world and to vindicate our human rights. If they kill one Palestinian, they are touching all humanity.
Ruth Sidonja, como lo decíamos, es presidenta del Tribunal
Ruth Sidonja, President of the International President of the Rights of Children and Women in Spain. This international solidarity is very important. The people have not decayed. The people support the resistance that this Palestinian people have showed. With this, we go to a new pause with the next question. Why did the United Nations condemn the United States in December 2017? What was the real reason? Participate through teleSUR, Leila Tajaldino under the tag Día de la Tierra Palestina.
After the
irresponsible measure announced by the U.S. government of acknowledging Jerusalem as the capital of Israel in violation of international regulations, the United States pretends to to move its embassy to this city, and this has been announced for May. What has happened after this measure is executed by the United States? U.S. President Donald Trump violated international law by recognizing Jerusalem as the capital of Israel and moving its embassy on occupied territory. Last December 21st, the international community condemned the White House decision by changing the nature, statute, and the composition of the saint city of Jerusalem. The United States has emphatically determined that these measures are illegal and have no value and must be revoked. The resolution condemning U.S. measures called all the states to comply with Security Council resolutions in relation to Jerusalem and to ignore any contrary measure. In spite of this resolution, the U.S. position has been to threaten the countries who contributed to this resolution and against the United Nations for Palestinian refugees by withdrawing economic contribution. Until now, the heads of this agency have said that in spite of these declarations, no country has withdrawn the contributions because of U.S. decision. The Day of Palestinian Law. To analyze this topic, we have Khaled Hendi, coordinator of the Latin American League for the Return of Palestine, but also member of the Directive Council of Arab Societies in Venezuela. Welcome to Jugada Crítica. Thank you. We first want to ask you, the Day of Palestinian Land, what are you expecting after these events with death and wounded people, a brutal action by the forces of a state that has installed and robbed Palestinian territory. What can we expect after this? First, we must know what the land of Palestine means for the Palestinians. Israel, through its occupation, has always tried to divide Palestinians, Palestinian, Israeli Palestinians, immigrants, refugees, and so. In 1976, when the people marched on the Israeli occupied territory to defend their right to their territory, many persons were killed, and March 30 was celebrated since then as a patriotic day for the defense of its land. We must also remember the Great March for the return to Palestine in 2011, when people marched across the border, Palestinian refugees in Syria to across the Lebanese and Hezbollah occupied territory. They were also received with shoots and killed many people, and wounded hundreds. And that day was repeated today. But why is it important? We know that the Gaza Strip has more than 10 years, and all sea, air, and land borders. Israel is occupying these territories and performing genocide to mark all the Gaza Strip and frame it by air, sea, and land. And unfortunately, the government of Egypt is accepting and keeping people from receiving humanitarian services in Egypt. So that is a day of Palestinian resistance. That, as our peers would say, resistance to exist. The Palestinian people is resisting there and is seeking for justice internationally. That gave birth to the Zionist state of Israel in 1947, after that resolution that the Palestinian people rejected. And cancer seed was planted on Palestinian land. It was divided in two parts, 44% of Palestine, 56% to Israel, to the Jewish state. But the capital of both states, according to that resolution, and left Jerusalem under an international administration. 70 years later, this is changing, and we see Trump's declaration aimed to change the U.S. Embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. For me personally, if it's the same in Tel Aviv or Jerusalem, because both are occupied territory, in spite of what has been said. But let's go to international law. According to Resolution 181 that divides the capital for both states, now they are trying to impose the president of the Palestinian people, who is announcing nearby town as capital of the Palestinian state, Abu Dis. But the Palestinian people in this march are giving a clear response, and that is the legitimate people of Palestine. The leaders are in the march and are saying, telling everybody that we are here resisting. We are not in our offices. We are struggling together with our people. And we saw that they were all marching peacefully. And this was to show the world that the Palestinian people is modern people, civilized people that is seeking peace. But the international community should apply all the resolutions. We are seeing that what exists as a mechanism to violate the true, to change the true spirit of this march. Many have tried to say that it's a march only called by the political organization Hamas, but we know that this is not true, and that all political organizations have gathered in the goal of remembering the Day of Palestinian Land, but also of demanding the Palestinian people's legitimate right to return to their land. What should be the reaction of the international community after this event and these results, where, as you pointed out, we saw a unilateral action by the Zionist forces on the cameras against the people that were unarmed. What should be the reaction of an international community and an organization that seeks credibility in the world? I think that the Palestinian people today is not alone. Some days ago, a Congress, the Fourth Congress in support of the Palestinian people, concluded in Beirut from March 11 to 14. In this Congress, there were delegations from 65 countries who support the Palestinian cause. I want to emphasize that the attendance to that Congress, including Jews, because the support was received not only from Christians and Palestinians, but also a good part of Jews that are supporting the Palestinian people against the criminal resolutions in our land. We could say that in Pakistan and India, Bangladesh, many people are marching for Palestine. And we just saw in Spain, there's a coordination all over the world to support these peaceful marches. And the support and demand for the international community to comply with the resolutions against the Zionist state of Israel. Unfortunately, the agreements took Palestinians out and made from Arab Jewish confrontation made it, but the confrontation does not belong only to Palestinian people. It belongs to all Arab peoples and all the free world. We saw how peoples who were struggling all over the world, we remember in Gaza, Rash al-Khoury, whose parents attended that summit, and a British journalist who also died to protect a Palestinian woman. Nevertheless, the United States, that is the land of Rash al-Khoury, did not criticize the Zionist state for its crimes against these peaceful activists who are acting on occupied Palestinian land to help the people and unmask the occupation. We thank you for your participation in Jugada Crítica, which and surely the peoples of the world will continue supporting this cause of which we have talked many times, the return of Palestinian people to their land and the return of those territories. We'll go now to conclusions. It even seems a mockery that Israel, the country with the largest number of international condemnations, violate these resolutions that force it to return occupied territories and return lands and allow the return of all refugees and stop war crimes. Nevertheless, Israeli policy remains the same and also is worse. What morality does the international community have if it hasn't stopped Israeli aggression? The United States is the main protector and accomplice of this criminal policy that does not only violate territorial rights of a people, but also human rights, which are violated systematically. We can then ask, is it the law of the strongest that is applied on Palestinian occupied territory? Until a next edition that will surely provide you an anti-hegemonic perspective of international reality.
Follow the most important global events through a comprehensive perspective. A team of journalists in 25 locations around the world. 3 broadcasts to convey our people's reality. From the South. Weekdays. Only on teleSUR.
A man who inspired a continent.
Era un hombre demasiado humilde, igual que uno. Y andaba junto con uno.
A current idea on every corner of his town.
En Chávez está una lectura originalísima de nuestra realidad.
Hugo Chavez, a man with dreams. On Sunday, Only on teleSUR.
Enjoy our programming from Monday to Friday, where you'll find the best information on innovation, conservation, human well-being, and human rights. Keep up to date on the latest innovations in science and technology with Atomun. The habits and knowledge you need to live a healthy lifestyle are on Guide Your Body. Environmental consciousness is required to preserve our Earth. Undergo your transformation on Green Zone. We defend the struggles of peoples in resistance fighting for their rights. Between Borders. All about equity, diversity, and respect for identity on By Gender. Every day we feature a wide variety of content. Only on teleSUR, the news source from Latin America and the Caribbean.
We have been current in every event stirring our people. Together in every broadcast, committing ourselves to a new South American point of view. teleSUR can now reach the Caribbean viewers from Antigua and Bermuda. We have done a lot of work on better understanding and communication. teleSUR, the news source from South America and the Caribbean.
Our actions have an impact on the environment. It's our responsibility to change for the sake of our planet. Let's be part of this transition. Watch, preserve, and protect your Green Zone. Wednesdays, only on teleSUR. teleSUR features the developments of science and technology that innovate and make the world go around.
Eso es Atomun, transmitimos desde América Latina. Bienvenidos, bienvenidas.
Technology available to everybody. Atomun. Mondays, only on teleSUR. With developing events being presented through analysis. Our coverage transcends borders. With renowned journalist Walter Martinez.
Salud amigos, tripulantes de nuestra querida, contaminada y única nave espacial.
Dossier. Weekdays. Only on teleSUR.
Y ponga usted las cámaras, señor director.
The evidence is well organized. It reveals the stratagems that the power uses to control the system. Both resistance and dissidents condemn the crimes committed to achieve some whims. On the basis of evidence, the journalist Chris Edge exposes Days of Revolt. Thursdays. Only on teleSUR. Community organization and revolutionary verse fused in And Don't Stop. A window to urban culture and political resistance, conducted by the hip-hop band Rebel Diaz. And Don't Stop, Friday, only on teleSUR.
Un pueblo es su memoria, de dónde venimos, quiénes somos, para poder decir a dónde vamos. Cuando me preguntan qué personajes de la revolución del siglo XX en América Latina me conmueven, me vienen de inmediato a la cabeza tres nombres. El primero es el Che, el segundo es Pancho Villa y el tercero es Antonio Guiteras. Ahora tengo más raíces, ahora sé de dónde vengo.
Pudo marcar en la revolución cubana, en la juventud, y que hoy en nuestros días es todavía un ejemplo y un paradigma para nosotros.
Y habría que añadir uno de los nuestros.
Los nuestros. Tuesdays. Only on teleSUR.
Cuando me dijeron que había otra posibilidad de compartir, como compartimos en Brasil, fue una familia. Esto que vamos a hacer en Rusia va a ser lo mismo, la familia, defendernos entre nosotros. Vamos a ir a un país que no es hostil, un país donde piensan prácticamente como nosotros. Será un gran mundial. ¿Por qué? Porque llegó teleSUR también a ese mundial.
Only on teleSUR, the news source from South America and the Caribbean.
A sign of resistance to hatred and injustice, Bill Fletcher Jr. conducts a discussion and analysis space to reveal the social struggles of Black people on the Global Africa. Wednesdays, only on teleSUR.
The people of Antigua and Barbuda went to the polls in order to exercise their democratic right. teleSUR came along with this West Indian nation to offer you the best information on this presidential election. You followed closely this election on our website in English and Spanish and on our social media. Coverage Antigua and Barbuda 2018 decides. Only on teleSUR, the news source from South America and the Caribbean.
Our actions have an impact on the environment. It's our responsibility to change for the sake of our planet. Let's be part of this transition. Watch, preserve, and protect your Green Zone. Wednesdays, only on teleSUR. teleSUR features the developments of science and technology that innovate and make the world go around.
Eso es Atomum, transmitimos desde América Latina. Bienvenidos, bienvenidas.
Technology available to everybody. Atomum. Mondays, only on teleSUR. With developing events being presented through analysis. Our coverage transcends borders. With renowned journalist Walter Martinez.
Salud amigos, tripulantes de nuestra querida, contaminada y única nave espacial.
Dossier. Weekdays. Only on teleSUR.
Y ponga usted las cámaras, señor director.
Follow the most important global events through a comprehensive perspective. A team of journalists in 25 locations around the world. 3 broadcasts to convey our people's reality. From the South. Weekdays. Only on teleSUR.
We have been current in every event steering our people. Together in every broadcast, committing ourselves to a new South American point of view. teleSUR can now reach the Caribbean viewers from Antigua and Barbuda. South America and the Caribbean.
Community organization and revolutionary verse fused in And Don't Stop. A window to urban culture and political resistance, conducted by the hip-hop band Rebel Diaz. And Don't Stop, Friday, only on teleSUR.
The Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, the awe of the world. Its immaculate buildings, impossible landscapes, dreamlike hotels and resorts. Who wouldn't want to live in this lavish wonderland? It's so regal and perfect that the world's champion of democracy and human rights is sidled up closer to it than any other friends.
A country that's been very close and very helpful to us.
A leader of Arab and Muslim people and a good friend of the United States.
Is indicative of the long-standing friendship between the United States and Saudi Arabia.
It's no surprise then the Saudi kingdom was picked to head the United Nations Special Panel on Human Rights. Its vision and expertise can now bless the world. Part of the Saudi monarchy's vision of human rights for the world includes, among other things, cutting lots of people's heads off with swords, right in the middle of the street. Saudi Arabia is one of only 4 countries in the world that still practices public executions, and has already executed more than 100 people in the first 6 months of 2015, mostly by ISIS-style beheadings, at a rate of 1 every 2 days. So many, in fact, that the government posted a new job listing for 8 additional executioners earlier this year. Saudi courts regularly hand down death sentences for things like sorcery, adultery, armed robbery, blasphemy, homosexuality, and drugs. Methods to carry out executions are gruesome: beheading, firing squad, or stoning to death. Non-violent drug offenses account for a shocking 43% of all executions. But when beheadings aren't terrifying enough, the kingdom's depraved elites resort to crucifixions. The appointment to the UN Human Rights Panel coincides with the news of Saudi Arabia's plan to behead and publicly crucify 21-year-old Saudi dissident Ali Nimr for taking part in political demonstrations when he was just 17 years old. Here in the year 2015, Nimir's beheaded corpse, with the head sewn back on, will be skewered on a cross for display for the crime of opposing the royal family. Operating courts in total secrecy, officials remain tight-lipped about who was killed and how. On occasion, though, videos are leaked. In 2015, footage got out of Saudi officials publicly beheading a Burmese woman on a busy Mecca street. You can hear the woman proclaiming her innocence as she is brutally executed by sword. Other punishments are so severe, they could result in death. Accused offenders have their limbs amputated, and dissenters are severely lashed. If the Saudi kingdom were an enemy of the US government, we'd be shown these images and facts every day on the mainstream media. But the crux of this relationship is keeping the real House of Saud a secret. Women's rights are human rights. But in such an oppressive patriarchy, driving is the least of what women can't do. Although Saudi women have finally been granted the right to vote, in 2015, Saudi women still need permission from male masters to do pretty much anything, like work, go to school, or even receive medical treatment. Allowed into less than 15% of the workforce, a study cited in Al Arabiya showed over 78% of Saudi women who graduated college are unemployed, including over 1,000 PhDs. Women are also routinely punished for their own sexual assaults. In one case, a teenager who was gang raped was punished with more lashings than her rapists in court.
But it's not just the free agency of women the kingdom is afraid of. It's anyone who criticizes its outdated rule.
In 2013, a Saudi activist was sentenced in a secret hearing to 4 years in jail and 300 public lashings for calling for a constitutional monarchy. In 2014, a lawyer and founder of an illegal human rights watchdog in Saudi Arabia was sentenced to 15 years in prison for criticizing the country's human rights abuses on Twitter.
The list goes on.
Wanton arrests and prolonged detention without trial or access to lawyers has always been prevalent in the country. But the sheer amount of people arbitrarily detained skyrocketed from the hundreds to the thousands under new anti-terrorism measures after 9/11. Thousands more are moved to so-called re-education centers for undisclosed amounts of time. According to a 2009 Amnesty International report, thousands of people have been arrested and detained in virtual secrecy, while others have been killed in uncertain circumstances. Hundreds more people face secret and summary trials and possible execution.
There is zero tolerance for political opposition. To date, no independent organization working for civil and political rights has ever been able to legally exist in the country. The brave few that attempt to speak out and organize get punished, or worse.
The absolute monarchy has been dominated by only one family. It's never had an elected leader. Since its inception, the oppressive regime has consistently quashed any semblance of democracy and human rights under the cloak of religion. This brutality is the iron fist that ensures that the country's wealth is only siphoned into the stomachs of a select few. Those lucky enough to be in the royal bloodline or its inner circle relish in the fortunes. The combined wealth of the top 10 richest Saudis is bigger than the gross domestic product of more than 100 countries. The king's personal wealth is $18 billion. For the privileged in the kingdom, buying the world's biggest mega yachts, shopping for million-dollar necklaces, owning empty mansions, and a life of endless vacation is just part of the package of having royal blood. It's a different story if you're not in the club. At least 20% of the population lives in abject poverty. 30% of Saudi youth are unemployed. But the unemployment rate only tells the hard story for Saudi workers. A darker reality exists for the 1.5 million migrant workers from Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, Indonesia, and elsewhere who are subjected to super exploitation. With a population that is 30% migrants, foreign workers are recruited to work Gulf Arab states through a kafala or sponsor. Saudi Arabia banned slavery in 1962, but the kafala has institutionalized a new slave-like system where employees are legally bound to their employers, stripped of their passports upon arrival, and in many instances denied money, mobility, and family contact. Millions of immigrants live in this indentured servitude, with no limit of work hours and under extremely harsh conditions. According to Human Rights Watch, most domestic workers reported working 15 to 20 hours a day, typically with 1 hour of rest or no rest at all. Domestic workers reported having to work even when ill or injured. Furthermore, many domestic workers were employed in large houses but reported inadequate living accommodations, including having to sleep in storage closets and a bathroom.
Anyone who flees this imprisonment is subject to arrest.
All over the kingdom, there are wanted posters for missing workers, reminiscent of the days of runaway slaves and slave catchers. The Indonesian government even plans to stop allowing domestic workers to work in Saudi Arabia after the double execution of 2 Indonesian maids this May. 41 more Indonesian workers still await execution. To understand more about life in the Saudi kingdom, I spoke to director of the Institute for Gulf Affairs and exiled Saudi dissident, Ali Al-Ahmed.
Well, the wealth is immense. The problem is its distribution. The ruling family controls the wealth of the country, especially the oil, and they control the economy. So in terms of the benefit of that wealth is limited to the ruling family and some of its cronies.
Of course, in the wake of King Abdullah's death, the U.S. government praised him as a great reformer. But how progressive was his reign?
King Abdullah is an absolute monarch. He has prevented the people of that country from participating in anything in terms of decision or wealth. So I don't see the reform in that in terms of women right that people use to talk about a lot with King Abdullah. He imprisoned his own daughters, 4 daughters, for 14 years, and they still their fate remains unknown. This is called domestic violence. When you hold adult people against their will for so many years, that's domestic violence. So I don't know if somebody who is committing a crime could be considered a reformer, especially a crime against his own daughters. Well, that's important to know that Saudi Arabia is the last country in the world to allow women to vote. And this vote is not of any importance because the municipal elections that they are voting for is partially elected and has nothing to do. They have no power. So really, it's very much comical because you elect people who have no power. That is really insignificant.
Ali, we constantly hear about ISIS and their barbarism, but talk about how humane Saudi Arabia's judicial system is.
The Saudi judicial system is a very much medieval, sectarian, medieval system that does not allow women, blacks, Shia, or ordinary Sunnis to become part of it. It is very much an apartheid court system, and it is very similar to that of ISIS in its ruling and its sources.
But what is it? Is it oil? Is it money? What is behind this unshakable bond?
It's money. Again, you saw about 10 days ago, 12 days ago, former President Bill Clinton and former President George W. Bush, one, his wife is running for president, and the other, his brother is running for president, flying to Washington to meet the Saudi king, to basically pay respect to him, and maybe in the process getting funded, their organizations or their campaigns getting funded by the Saudi or their Saudi allies in a very secret manner. I think it's time for the U.S. government, for the FBI, which has been harassing many people, they should go after. This is the real meaty stuff that they should go after. How an absolute monarchy that is funding terrorism, including that against the United States, from buying off presidential candidates.
With such egregious affronts to human rights, why would U.S. politicians risk supporting such a tyrannical reign?
History clearly tells us what the special relationship between ruling elites has always been about.
The land that would become Saudi Arabia was once 4 distinct regions, encircled and partially owned by the Turkish Empire. Its hidden treasure was yet to be discovered, so the barren land went largely ignored by colonial powers. At the dawn of the 20th century, one man followed his wealthy family's footsteps to achieve a modest dream: to be a king and rule supreme over a diverse region. In a little over 20 years, through pillaging and conquering the countryside, Ibn Saud declared himself king in 1925. In 1927, he was recognized by the United Kingdom as ruler of the realm. But he already had a revolt on his hands by the same religious militia that he had depended on to rise to power. So he massacred them. And by 1932, Ibn Saud's kingdom of Saudi Arabia was complete. He had tried but failed to also capture the southern territory that is Yemen today. His 45 sons became the heirs to power and profit in Saudi Arabia. With the conclusion of World War I, the victorious empires carved up the land, but still weren't concerned with the seemingly worthless expanse. While European powerhouses laid claim to the region's riches, the new royal overlords found something beneath their feet: the pivot of the modern industrial economy. Knowing it had some amount of oil in unknown locations and a low level of technological development, the Saudi family elicited the help of foreign oil companies. In the post-World War I feeding frenzy, the British and French empires cut American oil companies out of the region's known oil reserves. Eager to find new sources, the company known as Chevron today staked claim to Saudi Arabia's hidden oil fields in 1933 and struck big after 5 years of drilling. The discovery was unprecedented in size. The Arabian American Oil Company was formed to cash in on the bubbling profits. This Arabian American Oil Company was actually 100% owned by American companies, Mobil with 10%, and Exxon, Texaco, and Chevron each with 30%. Aramco paid royalties to the Saudi family for exclusive rights to the fields. Only making a fraction of what the oil giants were making, the profits were so vast that the Saudi monarchy grew even more obscenely wealthy. During World War II, Italian bombing crippled Saudi Arabian oil production. It was a wake-up call to the kingdom and Aramco. It needed protection, badly. Throughout the war, the U.S. empire began to increasingly recognize the geostrategic importance of Saudi Arabia's vast oil reserves. So in 1943, President Roosevelt declared that the defense of Saudi Arabia is vital to the defense of the United States. On behalf of the oil companies, the U.S. government deemed oil a national priority. They wanted cheap oil, hegemony over the region's resources, and a military garrison to enforce its domination. The Saudi royal family wanted fat paychecks, and above all, to have its power protected. So in 1945, an official oil for protection deal was made through President Roosevelt, securing a U.S. air and naval base in Saudi Arabia and unchallenged oil access. The U.S. then rebuilt and protected Saudi Arabia's bombed oil fields. The monarchy was pumped full of cash, training, and military equipment, its protection from both external and internal threats promised by the Pentagon. Indeed, the fragile Saudi kingdom was challenged. In 1953, in the eastern province, a hotbed of socialist organizing, workers at Aramco went on strike demanding a union. That same year, the U.S. and Saudi Arabia began the U.S. military training mission, which continues to this day, teaching the Saudi monarchs how to crush those types of annoyances. So when Aramco workers went on strike 3 years later, the kingdom had all the strike leaders swiftly assassinated. A new royal decree forbade any type of pro-worker demonstration, and they had shown just how far they would go to enforce it. In 1962, with a revolution that believed oil profits belonged to the people and not kings at its doorstep, Saudi Arabia, Jordan, and the United Kingdom supported the royalists' bloody counter-revolution in Yemen. Washington started sending squadrons of F-100 fighter jets to the Saudi kingdom. But this mutually beneficial relationship was not always expressed as complete subservience. The colonial project known as Israel caused a temporary rift between the empire and the Saudi monarchs, whose own base was fervently opposed to the Israeli ethnic cleansing, as well as fearing the Israeli aggression. By 1973, when the war broke out, the Saudi monarchs had to take a harder position. So the kingdom used the only leverage it had, cutting off oil to any country supporting Israel's expansion. Involving 12 oil-producing countries in the region, the Saudi-led oil embargo caused an energy crisis in the U.S. The price of oil quadrupled overnight, and gas prices skyrocketed. But while Saudi princes were flexing their oil muscle, the U.S. government was never really too worried about losing its access. All the oil in the world cannot trump the biggest military in the world.
If we were pushed absolutely against the wall, we might secure the oil by our own means.
Nixon and Kissinger never had to bomb the monarchs for their oil. The noble House of Saud, which had stood up so heroically for indigenous Palestinians against colonialism, was wooed by a more persuasive argument: killing indigenous people resisting colonialism in Vietnam. The Nixon administration pointed out to the royal family that the real threat to them was communism, not Israel. The Saudi kings had been watching U.S. stooges and dictators overthrown by people's movements the world over, fully aware of their own mortality. And that was all it took to get the oil flowing again. And they, along with royal partners like Qatar, United Arab Emirates, and Bahrain, were lavishly rewarded for it in an oil boom that's been called the most dramatic transfers of wealth in human history. It continued to help the U.S. shape the world by being their biggest financer of the Mujahideen's reign of terror in Afghanistan. But still, the specter of revolution haunted the pampered princes. After the Iranian people overthrew their dictatorship, hundreds in Saudi Arabia were inspired to seize the Grand Mosque, calling for the overthrow of the kingdom. The Saudi military crushed the rebellion. Over 60 surviving organizers were brought back to their hometowns and beheaded in front of their families.
At the same exact time, revolution was rearing its head in the east.
When Shia Muslims were attacked for celebrating an illegal religious holiday, 19-year-old student organizer Hussein Mansour al-Khalaf was shot and killed. His death sparked massive demonstrations. The Communist Party, student and women's organizations, and the religious community came out in the tens of thousands. Days of mass protests ensued. The years of being trained and armed by the U.S. came in handy. 20,000 Saudi soldiers were deployed. The Saudi king's only remedy was heavy machine gun helicopters to strafe neighborhoods and unleash on literally any grouping of people in public. Even funerals were attacked. Thousands were rounded up and sent to be tortured, imprisoned, or executed.
It was clear that the increasingly wealthy ruling family lived with the reality that its subject population could always rise up.
The U.S. was fearful, too, of losing their puppet princes. And the Reagan administration pledged it would send the U.S. military to Saudi Arabia to stop any revolution. The perks for the U.S. empire played out in a big way in 1990, when its destruction of Iraqi society was made possible by using Saudi Arabia as the military staging ground. U.S. military power, including drone bases, remain today. After 80 years of unbridled brutality to protect their absolute power, the Saudi billionaires were again faced with their ultimate threat. The Arab Spring struck fear into repressive police-state monarchies all over the Middle East, and the House of Saud knew very well its place in that equation. So it issued a wide decree banning all journalism that could be construed as challenging the monarchy or sympathetic for the protests. The internet was even more heavily censored and monitored for political organizing. But people everywhere stood up as protests erupted in front of government ministry buildings in Riyadh, Tabuk, and Taif. Over the course of the next few months, 19 people were shot to death by security forces. Any known organizer was hunted down, arrested, tortured, and sometimes executed. Bahrain's Arab Spring was also crushed by 1,000 Saudi soldiers sent to protect their cohort kingdom. Close to 100 unarmed demonstrators were killed in the slaughter. You would never know it watching the Western media, but Saudi Arabia's Arab Spring still lives in the East. People there are still fighting and dying. In September 2012, 26-year-old protester Khalid Labad was assassinated by Saudi police, along with 2 teenage relatives. Dubbed Bloody Wednesday, their funeral became a mass demonstration. By the end of 2013, the area was completely occupied militarily, surrounded by checkpoints. At least 15 youth have been shot and killed by the state for protesting. A list of 23 wanted activists was published by the monarchy. Most on the list have been hunted down and killed or arrested, the survivors forever in hiding. Despite this horrific repression, resistance heroically continues to this day. The engorged lapdog of the U.S. empire's domestic and foreign policy is based on a violent defense of its rule, because that's its only hope for survival, which is why it's become the world's biggest arms importer. Since the Arab Spring, Saudi arms imports have quadrupled. Made in the USA, of course. In 2013 alone, they bought $5.5 billion worth of American firepower. In 2014, Saudi Arabia joined the U.S. bombing campaigns in Syria and Iraq. Like the U.S., it too is now fighting the very threat it helped create, with years of arming reactionary groups with endless weapons. But it's not just with guns. The most extreme factions of the Saudi elite are openly engaged in financially sponsoring al-Qaeda and the Taliban. Despite being the closest ally in the war on terror, WikiLeaks found Hillary Clinton admitting that donors in Saudi Arabia constitute the most significant source of funding to Sunni terror groups worldwide, to the tune of $100 billion. To protect their lucrative relationship, U.S. politicians have gone to great lengths to hide the most scandalous secret of all: Saudi Arabia's role in 9/11. 28 pages of a joint congressional inquiry into 9/11 remain classified, but we know what's in them. Lead author of the report, Senator Bob Graham, said the pages point a very strong finger at Saudi Arabia as the principal financier of the hijackers. Because the Arab Spring puts such fear into the House of Saud, it's shown that it will pursue its own foreign policy, outside of simply being a puppet to the Pentagon. The Saudi monarchy has been pushing the U.S. for a much harsher approach for regime change in Syria and Iran, even secretly meeting with Israeli officials. Two completely dependent children of the empire teaming up out of anger over the U.S.-Iran nuclear deal. And earlier this year, the Saudi princes embarked on their most heinous offense yet. Backed by other Gulf monarchies and the Pentagon, the new Saudi king is leading a huge war on civilians to decide a country's future. At least 150,000 Saudi troops are now in Yemen. To date, more than 4,000 Yemenis have been killed by Saudi aggression, at least half of them civilians. Bombs have reduced the precious 2,500-year-old cultural site in Sana'a to rubble. In one massacre, Saudi troops used U.S. Apache helicopters to mow down 40 civilians, including rescue workers. And their latest atrocity is the bombing of a wedding party, murdering over 130 Yemenis. Desperate to see regional foes obliterated and internal opposition snuffed, there's no telling what lengths this rotting kingdom will go to keep its billionaires in their yachts. The masses it oppresses inside, and its neighbors who correctly see it as a stooge to U.S. military crimes, strike fear into the twisted hearts of these so-called royals. Seemingly very different, the House of Saud and the leaders of the U.S. actually have a lot in common. Both are an obscenely wealthy clique, ruling over the majority, holding power through outdated draconian laws, and unleashing brutality on anyone, anywhere, who challenges it. Because when it comes to the empire, economic interests trump morality every time.
The Saudi people are fighting for their sovereignty every day. But it's only with American sponsorship that these tyrannical, absolute monarchies are able to continue their militarized reign of repression and theft. We have the ability to expose and stand up to the oil companies, the Pentagon, and the politicians who prop up this kingdom. And we have reason to be optimistic, because we can see how desperately scared they are of losing their crowns. Knowing history has not been kind to kings.
A man who inspired a continent.
Era un hombre demasiado humilde, igual que uno, y andaba junto con uno.
A current idea on every corner of his town.
En Chávez está una lectura originalísima de nuestra realidad.
Hugo Chavez, a man with dreams. On Sunday, only on teleSUR.
Un pueblo es su memoria, de dónde venimos, quiénes somos, para poder decir a dónde vamos. Cuando me preguntan qué personajes de la revolución del siglo XX en América Latina me conmueven, me vienen de inmediato a la cabeza tres nombres. El primero es el Che, el segundo es Pancho Villa y el tercero es Antonio Guiteras. Ahora tengo más raíces, ahora sé de dónde vengo.
Pudo marcar en la Revolución Cubana, en la juventud, y que hoy en nuestros días es todavía un ejemplo y un paradigma para nosotros.
Y habría que añadir uno de los nuestros.
Los nuestros. Tuesdays. Only on teleSUR.
Cuando me dijeron que había otra posibilidad de compartir, como compartimos en Brasil, fue una familia. Esto que vamos a hacer en Rusia va a ser lo mismo, la familia, defendernos entre nosotros. Vamos a ir a un país que no es hostil, un país donde piensan prácticamente como nosotros. Será un gran mundial. ¿Por qué? Porque llegó teleSUR también a ese mundial.
Only on teleSUR, the news source from South America and the Caribbean.
Peace, y'all. This is G1. This is Rod Starr. Together, we Rebel Diaz. And we coming at you live once again from the RDAC DX studio in the South Bronx. And you watching the episode of And You Don't Stop.
Today, we follow up the conversation with Chilean 9/11 survivors, the first 9/11, about the legacy of Miguel Enriquez, leader of the ME. Also, we have more word on the street with the people about Che Guevara and the amazing artist Dasic Fernandez on Rooftop Live.
Claudia sits down once again with Nieves Aires, Victor Toro, and Mario Venegas, and they're going to talk about El MIR, the revolutionary leftist movement that they were a part of in the late 60s and early 70s, and they're also going to talk specifically about the influence of arts and culture in their movements and the legacy of Miguel Enriquez. Let's check that out, y'all.
Toda la complejidad del arte y la música pues tenía una importancia primordial.
La parte cultural dentro de los campos de concentración. Ya, ahí habíamos de todos los partidos políticos y estábamos organizados a nivel de todos, pero en especial las compañeras del MIR fuimos bien disciplinadas, bien organizadas, ellas, compañeras muy preparadas, muchas intelectuales, profesionales. Producíamos blusas, zapatos artesanales, juguetes, todo artesanal que era vendido por otras compañeras fuera y sacadas a otros países. Cada compañera tenía un sueldo de acuerdo a las cargas que tenía familiar, a los hijos, y con lo que ganábamos iba entrando, con eso íbamos ayudando a las compañeras. Y eso no se había dado en ningún lado, se dio desgraciadamente dentro de un campo de concentración. Después vino la etapa de las arpilleras, que sacamos la idea de la Violeta Parra. Ella bordaba, pero nosotros empezamos a pegar las lanitas y a formar cuadros, a hacer, especialmente eran los de Valparaíso, las estampas de Valparaíso, del puerto, de los trenes que bajaban, los funiculares. Y así cada cual iba creando su arpillera. Después vinimos a hacerlas ya bordadas, porque antes no nos dejaban pasar materiales, entonces había que inventar mucho para que te pasaban dejar una aguja, el hilo, y después producto de las mismas campañas que nosotros hicimos y las denuncias que hicimos, que no nos dejaban trabajar, logramos que entraran más elementos para poder trabajar.
Ese legado lo estamos haciendo a diario aquí en la entraña del monstruo. Ese fue la fusión, la tarea del movimiento de la Peña del Bronx. Esa es la fusión y la tarea del movimiento juvenil que encabeza rebeldía a nivel nacional y a nivel internacional. Ese es el legado de Miguel, el legado de Che Guevara, de Malcolm X, de Rosa Parks, de todos los que han luchado y que con sus legados, con sus ejemplos, surgen nuevos movimientos con otros nombres, con otras líricas, con otros cantos, con otras acciones.
For today's segment, we follow up with the hashtag Che Guevara. But once again, we flipped the script on what word in the streets has usually been. So right now we're in Hunts Point, my community that I love. We're gonna go into the Point, the community center that's right here. We're gonna talk to the people inside and some of the young folks and see what they know about Che Guevara.
Che organized on behalf of poor people and really inspired people's movement that has rippled throughout society and that we still look to today as an example of what it means to organize and be in solidarity and to create a people's government.
I have no idea who the name of this person is.
Che Guevara.
What do you know about Che Guevara?
He freed Cuba along with Fidel Castro.
Freedom fighter, man. Living life for us, man. Gave his life for us, you know what I'm saying? So, you know, making life better for us. History speaks it. Cuban born, I guess, believe. Yeah. Inspiration for me.
Who's this right here that you're holding up?
Honestly, I don't know much, but I know his name is Cheo, and he was a revolutionist for the Cuban.
I don't really know much about him or his history, but I know his name is Che. He was one of the revolutionists who went to Bolivia and got murdered on the way up there.
All right.
That's the best I can tell you.
I know he helped Fidel Castro with the revolution in Cuba. Like, he helped him take over the island. And I think once he was done in Cuba, he went to Bolivia to try to do the same over there. He got captured and he got killed.
He's Che Guevara. He's one of the biggest guys in Cuba. He basically freed Cuba along with Fidel Castro. Later on, he was killed by the FBI, but, you know, bummer. They cut off his thumbs, too, in order to make sure that it was him.
Hold it up, hold it up. Come on, man, stop running from me, man. Stop running from me, man.
First of all, graffiti is something like very spontaneous. It's something that you have. It's part of the resistance, you know, of the community, of the young people, from the kids, you know. It's part of like saying, yo, I'm here, you know, like that's what I exist. Yeah, I exist, you know, I'm part of this world and I'm as important as, you know, like professionals are, you know, like who are like, you know, working in a office. We are somebody too, and we have our talent, and we are, you know, just doing our stuff in the street, and like, you know, we know the society is up. So that's, you know, the typical graffiti and like bombing and tagging is just an answer, you know, it's a reflection of this society. Then, you know, I think everybody starts from there. And then like you know, gets more skills and gets like, you know, you develop your talent, you know, you are with the same spray can, with the same fat cap maybe, but you start understanding that you can do something different, and instead of just like, you know, like do like tagging, you know, like around, you can start doing some beautiful pieces with the same technique that you use for tagging, you know, like cutting, you know, like the way that you use the fat cap, the distance from the wall and everything. So then, like, it turned out like to be like a fight to get respect from the people. So it's very hard, like, to see spots like this one here in Brooklyn, for example, that people respect or stand up for graffiti. People who doesn't even paint, who is not even an artist, but it's a community, you know, that is like art lovers and like graffiti lovers who like stand up and say, yo, I have walls, I really respect, I really think that this type of expression, you know, like is even better than the stuff that you find out in museums or in art galleries, you know. Even have more value because you are in the street. You are not in a studio where nothing can happen to you. In the street, anything can happen to you. You know, like it can start raining and you have to go home, or if the police come and you don't have the permission, you go to jail. Straight like that, you know. And you are not even doing anything wrong. You're trying to beautify, you know, like a community, an area. But it's always a fight. You know, to me, graffiti is always like about standing up and like, you know. It's like a statement, you know, like I'm here and this shit, you know, matters. Sometimes people have no idea, but sometimes you work 16 hours per day for something that you are not even getting paid, you know? And it's just about, you know, passion and just, to be honest, for me, it's just, I can't stop doing it. You know, like I will die if I stop painting. Right. If I go to an office and I work in an office, I will just, I prefer, you know, like I'd rather die to don't be painting, you know, like.
Peace, y'all. This is D1.
This is Rod Stars.
Together we rebel Diaz.
And we coming at you from the RDAG studio in the Bronx with a new episode of
And You Don't Stop. This week, we have El Reporte at the People's Climate March, a huge march that went down for climate justice in New York City.
G had a chance to hit up Detroit, and then he also had a chance to do a rooftop live with Black Opera. Check it out, y'all. We understand the idea that climate change is affecting all of us because we live this every day on the front lines in the South Bronx. So let's check out an important reporte from the streets from the People's Climate March.
An estimated 400,000 people took to the streets of New York City Sunday at the historic People's Climate March. Earlier in the Bronx, families gathered to denounce local issues before heading downtown to join the march.
That's what we have to think about today. Which side are we on when we're marching in this march? You know, we're really bringing this contingency out, food justice. When we start talking about the Bronx, everybody wants to talk about the bad things that's happening. But if you look around, all these people who are doing great stuff, healthy children, good jobs with living wages and respect and integrity. We want to grow better communities. We want to grow clean air.
We want to live. That's it. It's plain and simple. We want to live. We know that everything that's happening in the community that we live in, we've been a dumping ground for a long time. The air is dirty. We live right by a highway. You know, we want a community that we can raise our kids in.
Breast milk is supposed to be the best thing for your babies. In the Bronx, my breast milk was contaminated, like all the other mothers in the Bronx. So if that's pure from my body that produces the best thing for them, you can imagine how polluted the food that we're eating, our vegetables are.
Thousands descended on Midtown Manhattan, shutting down traffic as the streets filled up.
Hey guys! Vamos a la marcha. Vamos. Get back in.
I think it's important to take care of the environment because if you don't, then you can't really, you'll be living sadly and you won't have like fresh water to drink and nice food and you won't have much animals that are still alive. So it's going to be hard for you to live.
We're here part of the Indigenous delegation to make sure that Indigenous voices are heard. Climate change affects all of us, but especially affects those on the front lines. Indigenous peoples, people of color, our farmers, our campesinos, those are on the, living off the land. And so in any discussion about climate change, those on the front line, those that you see before you, have to be on the forefront of that because we are on the forefront of that change. It's an issue for all of us. And so hopefully it opens eyes to see that this is something massive and bigger, and it's going to grow bigger and bigger.
Others spoke to the issue of economic inequality and framing the struggle for climate justice.
A lot of people here understand that this is not like just about changing your light bulbs, that we have a deeply unjust economic system. But I think the more exciting part is that so many people here understand that by confronting that logic of greed and endless growth, there will be a better economy. There's an understanding that when the planet wins, the people win too. Better jobs, cleaner air, a more equal, compassionate, loving society.
The march culminated on the city's west side with music, theater, dance, and art installations meant to inspire and mobilize.
And your future.
Let's be very clear, I ain't here to drink beer, smoke weed, shoot the breeze, and break bread with you. I'm only here to resurrect the living dead with you. Thought it was some kind of a game, I'm not playing with you. I got the Moorish warlords with Moroccan sharks, one Ethiopians with white face camouflage. Already disciplined and ready for that sabotage. You listen to Minaj? Word? You should kill yourself and everybody that you came with. Arrangements out of jurisdiction, no arraignment. My name gets mentioned through the ethers, through high frequency speakers. Certified, fortified, get in line. Make this revolution rap your favorite pastime. Make listen to cool tunes your very last time. Last time he was CO and now he's gangstified. Pushing keys, catching
From New York City, this is G1, and you don't stop. teleSUR English.
Yes, y'all, another rooftop live. Today we are in Detroit. We have the pleasure of having with us the brother Majestic Legend and Buff1 Jamal Buffer. Together they are the Black Opera, representing Detroit, representing Michigan. Brothers, first of all, thank y'all for being on the program. Thank you for being here with us. I've got in tune with y'all music, and I know y'all have been in the game for some time as individuals. Let us know a little bit about how y'all come together and what Black Opera is.
The Black Opera was introduced to us as an artistic collective. So
We can't really get too much into the origin because we're still figuring out ourselves. But when it was time for the Black Opera to do the music portion of their movement, they hollered at us and a lot of other artists around the world. You know, so it's a lot of them out there. Still a lot of voices is coming out. So, but it's been a pleasurable experience for me to be a part of the movement and get up on the knowledge that they bestowed to me and all of that, and get to hear my voice heard. You know, so it's really good. Yeah, it's TBO.
We, Jamal Bufford, Majestic Legend, we've known each other for, shoot, yeah, probably about at least 15, 16 years. He's from Detroit. I'm originally from Ann Arbor. You know, my crew, Athletic Mike League, started coming out here and doing shows. He was in a crew called Subterraneous, started coming out to Ann Arbor doing shows. So we've known each other for 15, 16 years.
Pay attention. You are now about to witness a live demonstration by the Black Opera.
Pull your guns out. Niggas, pull your guns out. If that's the way you battle, you gon' have to shoot my tongue out. Cause all I do is talk loud, man, and run my mouth. I walk around with a sound, man, adjusting down. It's for the over and the underground. I'm somewhere in the middle, like my mama had an older and a younger child. Wow. You know I shine like the sun is out. When you come around, it gets gloomy like a thundercloud. I am having so much fun with this. You working all hard, trying to think of stuff to come up with. If rap was a marathon, some will jog, some will sprint. Consider me a Kenyan with the catalog you run against. My track record stockpiling based on quality and productivity. You deserve fire. All in my ear talking about how hard you're grinding. I put out albums yearly. It sounds like you're lying. Stop lying. I have seen not one dropping. My car is clean and over yours I'm squatting. Year after year I hit the people with the pepper and deliver to your door like my name was Doug Heffernan. Some of y'all gon' really hate me after this verse, but if you read the credits, see your name ain't on the insert. I guess I'm a jerk like Josh Remsburg, cause I care not of your opinion for what it's worth. Oh, and this is the legendary kingdom. Pistons, lions, tigers, bears, leopards, and the zebras. We live a wild life, save the letters mail from Peter. The newest crew that you should know, TBO season.
And this is why I speak up. When niggas pledge allegiance to the re-up, the chickens never let a nigga prenup. They dedicate to getting in your pockets like some Leon. My extra papers falling to the vapors in the weon. And we are shadows in the distance like some elephants, they see us. Mathematics missing like the number man, they cheat us. My teacher preached arithmetic and chemistry to me. Come again, I was thinking about some D cups. Double meaning, also plastic up in Henny water. Bubbling D-boys falling like trouble T-Roy. You know the Jake Steves break freeze like a B-boy. My telekinesis winging tree trunks. I tell the police to treat my P-what? But melanin means that I'm the Shia. We make it right. Money while they take it track. Money black. On us still they sprinkle crack. On his back. On it like a treadmill. We're on shit. Gunning through the jungle with a hell and compass.
Peace, y'all. This is G1.
This is Rod Star.
Together we are Rebel Diaz.
And we coming at you from the RDAC BX with a new episode of And You Don't Stop.
This week, we have more reporting from the People's Climate March in New York City, where we had arts and culture demanding climate justice.
And then another rooftop live with Black Opera.
G1 with teleSUR English. We are here at the New York City Climate Justice March. There are thousands of people on the streets. This has turned into a festival, a celebration of sorts. We have hip hop going on. We have people dancing.
So let me in my zone throw this dog a bone. Cause I spit bars for those native kids at home who got wounds and scars, who dreams go far. You got a jump shot, you a red superstar. Take a cruise in my car screaming fuck the law. We don't know no better when adults withdraw. Bumping first of the month on the first of the month. From the womb to the hearse, dirty shirt what I want.
Yeah, and you don't stop. Cause it's 187 on the song.
Cause it's 187 on the revolving red side. Deal, and you don't stop. Cause it's 187 on the Mama Duke. Deal, and you don't stop. Said it's 187 on every corrupt guy. Say the police, the police.
Claim you never knew. They say that you are living in these stolen lands. Stolen lands, but you didn't know. Stolen lands, my people ain't gonna take it no more. Stolen lands, time to settle the score. Stolen lands, checking Native people.
We keep it razor, double shot without the chaser. My soliloquies are high frequency, so raise the fader. Run tell a neighbor, hip-hop's resuscitator. Firstly caught food for thought brought, so tip the waiter. The gladiator, I'm not bingy in a sick shoe. I'm laid back with an all-met 6'2". We camouflage black, made back 6'2". Then we levitate weightless bird's eye view. Boom, I didn't sign up for the show and tells. I do this thing here for Oscar Grant and Sean Bell. I rap well for those that hell before the shells fell. The melanated concentrated up in prison cells. And well, now that we're finished with the introductions and everyone is here is clear on following instructions, put your hands up high until they vertical and rock out as I sew it up surgical. Sweet.
First things first, I'm the realest. Drop this and let the whole world feel.
When the beat drops, we gonna reach out our way left and right, alright? So we gonna try it. Slow, left, right, left, right,
Dice lo que hace. Ideas into action. Move faster, it's time to save the planet. When you standing, which way is you going? Which side is you supporting? They build walls, we show love. They under the dollar, I'm like peace to the gods.
Yes, y'all, another Rooftop Live. Today we are following up with the Black Opera. I also know that y'all sometimes refer to it as the Black Op era. Share a little bit about that double meaning.
The Black Op era came when the music came. That's our era. Right. We're the voices that are going to get the message out, and it's really that simple. So we've been recruited, and we've been, nominated to also recruit people too. So that's the Black Ops. They're everywhere. It might be your teacher, it might be a homie, it might be a gangbanger, it might be a reverend. They're all out there, and they're connected to the TBL. So.
You also do some work in the community. You're building with the young people.
I'm privileged enough to work at this teen center in Ann Arbor, Michigan called the Neutral Zone. About a year ago, I actually became music coordinator overseeing all the music programs. So really, with the Neutral Zone, it's really about teen voice and creating leaders. We have 7 different music programs, but we also have tons of other different programs.
I represent a company called Legend Lab. I'm an independent contractor, so I go to the location. Like he's at the location, he is the location. I'm more like a mobile lab, so the kids get an opportunity to learn, songwriting. They get coached in live performance, production, MCing, basically all the things that I know how to do. I've made the structure so I can share it with them. So it's really a beautiful thing. And I go from Ann Arbor to Westland to Detroit. I'll go anywhere.
black like funeral attire. Dead Mike, you might lose me in a night. Turn on your headlights. I'm black, y'all. So black, I had to say it twice. As long as blood is blue in my vein, minus the red, white America. Trying to keep a killer cage. Butterfly effect got us in the caterpillar stage. The black opera finna blow, y'all finna hate. Once the outcast, now we feeling good, feeling great. Africa medallion, chain around my neck is wood. Stunting on you hoes, man, I really wish a pecker would. Stand like a man in the places y'all ain't never stood. And shake the hands and get respect from those you never could. And this is just a half of what's cracking. Little something for the cats that like raps about rapping. Champ status rapping with a Pacquiao accent. Alley-oop passing, ask them what's happening.
What is this? A mockery of triumph? Contingent presidents like I'm a doctor to the tyrant. Taste testers bite their tongue, which is cursing his desire. Your career's worst fear here. Elected to the Amish Jebediah. Head is higher than a prostitute for pilots. Kings call me sire, I'm a god to Zeus's goddess. Me, my empire got a body like Colossus. Singing my Sinatra's through a cloudy roof in London. Death to all imposters unless they on my roster. Ninjas falling off, getting lost cause they starstruck. Show the Conning Squadron, Decepticon the Optimus. Optimist the pessimist, chameleon the obvious. Won't know what my monster to the clock is thinking opposite. Exploding all their arms like a bomb inside an octopus. Skull inside the palm, crystal balls are like binoculars. Fighting for the cause a fight, I cause apocalypse. Writings on the wall, this ain't a game, I'm not a comic, no. Taylor got a suit with your name like Mubarak. In pinstripes, these little guys is pop warners. Shoot him in the eye, put him in the Glock coma, push it to your hideout. Give up chase like cops running. Computer suicide, you clicks away from bonfires. Explosion, Pearl Harbor, niggas trying to overthrow the Contra.
Follow the most important global events through a comprehensive perspective. A team of journalists in 25 locations around the world. 3 broadcasts to convey our people's reality. From the South. Weekdays. Only on teleSUR. teleSUR features the developments of science and technology that innovate and make the world go around.
Eso es Átomo, transmitimos desde América Latina. Bienvenidos, bienvenidas.
Technology available to everybody. Atomon. Mondays, only on teleSUR.
A man who inspired a continent.
Era un hombre demasiado humilde, igual que uno, y andaba junto con uno.
A current idea on every corner of his town.
En Chávez está una lectura originalísima de nuestra realidad.
Hugo Chavez, a man with dreams. On Sunday, only on teleSUR.
Some habits pose risk to your health. Connecting mind and body can help overcome these issues. A healthy lifestyle allows us to have personal well-being and harmonious relationships. Guide your body. Tuesdays, only on teleSUR.
Cuando me dijeron que había otra posibilidad de compartir, como compartimos en Brasil, fue una familia. Esto que vamos a hacer en Rusia va a ser lo mismo. La familia, defendernos entre nosotros. Vamos a ir a un país que no es hostil, un país donde piensan prácticamente como nosotros. Será un gran mundial. ¿Por qué? Porque llegó teleSUR también a ese mundial.
Only on teleSUR, the news source from South America and the Caribbean.
A sign of resistance to hatred and injustice, Bill Fletcher Jr. conducts a discussion and analysis space to reveal the social struggles of Black people on The Global Africa. Wednesdays, only on teleSUR. During all this time, they have been with us to report the realities shivering the world, supporting and sharing our victories. Due to their work, we are currently in more places and will still be in the voice of the people. The news source from Latin America and the Caribbean.
From the headquarters of teleSUR English in Quito, Ecuador, this is From the South, and I am Soini Gray. We begin in Palestine, where Israeli troops have killed at least 16 people during protests on the border with Gaza. Hundreds more have been wounded. 30,000 Palestinians converged on 6 locations at the Gaza-Israel border on the first day of what they're calling the March of Return. It was the biggest demonstration against Israeli occupation in recent years. The Israeli forces used tank shells, live ammunition and tear gas against the protesters. IDF Chief of Staff Gadi Eisenkot told local media ahead of the protest that Israel has created a sniper task force consisting of over 100 sharpshooters to counter the demonstration. Eisenkot stressed that Israeli soldiers will use a lot of force to prevent any possible infiltration by Palestinians into Israeli territory from the Gaza Strip. Despite the danger, the Palestinians refused to back down.
Today is a turning point for our people in our history of national struggle and fight, and our way to freedom and return. Today our people from the whole nation, from Gaza, from the West Bank, from the occupied lands in 1948, and from other countries, are launching this new phase.
Israeli soldiers also fired at protesters in the West Bank as youth threw stones at soldiers in the towns of Jericho, Nablus, and elsewhere. They're demanding the right of return for Palestinians driven from their homes when the State of Israel was created in 1948.
I, faced with this sad event, place full responsibility on the Israeli authorities for the loss of the martyrs who were killed today following the firing of the occupation army soldiers against the popular and peaceful protests which came out to commemorate this anniversary and to take back its right in self-determination like other countries around the world. I've asked the United Nations today for immediate action to provide international protection for our Palestinian people facing this continuous and escalating daily aggression.
And our correspondent in Gaza, Noor Harazin, has been at one of the hospitals where the dead and wounded were taken. She sent this report.
We are right now in front of one of the medical units that was set here almost 100 or 200 meters away from the border fence between Gaza and Israel. Every 5 minutes we witness a new ambulance coming here and delivering a new injury to this mini hospital. We saw men, women and also children injured in the arms, in the legs and also in the head, according to the Palestinian medical sources. It is afternoon here in the Gaza Strip and the number of injuries is up to 600 every 1 hour. Every 30 minutes the number go higher by 100 injury and new people being reported as killed. Until now the number of Palestinians killed is 9 people. And now we will talk to one of the organizers, Mr. Isam. Mr. Issam, can you please tell me more about yourself and about organizing this event? And also, can you please let us know about the latest on the ground, what has happened until now, and how this march is going?
We in the International Coordination Committee for the Great Return March, we have been working for 3 months for this event, to start this event. Today, Gaza has risen up to their requests for their right to return. We have seen an image that has never been expected from Gaza, out of the poverty, out of the collapse of the economy, out of the siege. All of this, all the Gazans today came to these 5 open camps to spread a message that we are going to go inside to retain our rights and go back to our lands and homes that we have been expelled from in the 1948 war. According to the International Resolution 194, particularly paragraph number 11. What we have seen today is something unexpected at all. Hundreds of thousands have marched today, and this is only the start. Gazans are going to sit into these 5 open camps in order to send a message of peace to the whole world, that it is no longer accepted by us, by the Palestinians, that the right to return, which has been endorsed by the United Nations more than 130 times over the past 70 years, can be delayed no longer, especially after Donald Trump, the president of the United States president, has wounded our dignity by touching the right to return, which is we cannot accept this at all. And we have risen up to our rights, and we will not allow this to happen at all. Our rights have to be implemented. If it is for the past 70 years have not been implemented by the international community itself, we are going to implement it by our bare feet.
We thank Noor Harazin for that report. Switzerland has joined a growing list of countries who have imposed economic sanctions on Venezuela. Our correspondent in Caracas, Freddie Gillingham, has more.
Switzerland, known for its clean air, its rich chocolate, and of course, its fondue. Politically, it is considered neutral, or at least it was up until recently. Now the country has joined a growing number of other nations in imposing economic sanctions against Venezuela. The Swiss government has declared asset freezes as well as travel bans for people, companies and organisations tied to the Venezuelan government. Reasons given echo those of the European Union, who in February imposed sanctions of their own. But who are these sanctions hurting the most? teleSUR spoke to analyst Herman Saltron to find out more.
If you block a state and you do not allow them to pay its debts or get new ones, to pay for food and medicine, what you are doing is starving those people.
It looks like some of the so-called democratic governments of the European Union are aligning themselves with Washington, who are leading these economic sanctions against Venezuela. But however, this administration in Washington not only contains climate change deniers, but also, following the recent appointment of John Bolton, open warmongers. But this doesn't seem to be putting off its European allies. Venezuelans will decide on May 20th who they want as their president. But it looks like certain countries aligned to Trump have already decided who they don't want to win, and are doing everything in their power to make that a reality. Freddie Gillingham, teleSUR, Caracas.
The Venezuelan government has made a proposal to restart talks on its territorial dispute with neighboring Guyana. A statement from the Foreign Ministry said a diplomatic note has been sent to Guyana rejecting the UN Secretary General's decision to refer the dispute over the Essequibo region to the International Court of Justice. It said Venezuela does not recognize the ICJ's jurisdiction in the matter and proposes returning to direct diplomatic discussions between the two countries. Still in Venezuela, the National Electoral Council, or CNE, has approved the final registry for the upcoming presidential and legislative elections that will be held on May 20th. More than 20 million people will elect a new president, while almost 19 million people will choose their representatives in the legislative councils. For the presidential elections, all citizens of legal age are enrolled in the CNE, even those abroad. However, for the legislative councils, people who live abroad will be exempted from voting. Foreigners who have lived in Venezuela for more than 10 years, however, would be able to vote. A group of intellectuals, social activists and artists have written an open letter demanding that the government of Ecuador restore Julian Assange's freedom of expression. On Wednesday, Ecuador cut off internet access for the founder of WikiLeaks, who has been inside the Ecuadorian embassy in London since 2012, when the previous government of Rafael Correa granted him political asylum. The authors of the letter, including Noam Chomsky, the musician Brian Eno, and journalist John Pilger, say Assange has also been denied access to a telephone and the right to receive visitors. They write, if the Ecuadorian government does not cease its unworthy action, it too will become an agent of persecution rather than the valiant nation that stood up for freedom. Well, time now for a short break, but join us again after a look at what our multimedia colleagues are reporting.
A man who inspired a continent.
Era un hombre demasiado humilde, igual que uno, y andaba junto con uno.
A current idea on every corner of his town.
En Chávez está una lectura originalísima de nuestra realidad.
Hugo Chavez, a man with dreams. On Sunday, only on TeleSUR.
Welcome back. Costa Rica goes to the polls on Sunday for the presidential election. It's a closely watched fight after a gay marriage controversy pitted a Christian preacher against the ruling party candidate. Now the polls show the front runners are tied neck and neck.
Indecision, absenteeism, and a lack of political identity can be the words used to describe this election.
Political players are weak due to the difficulties they face representing the people. There's a growing gap between citizens and political parties.
Now that the parties have held their campaign closing ceremonies, many topics have been left undebated, such as the growing concerns about human rights.
We've opposed same-sex marriage from the start. We haven't budged like some other candidates back in the first round.
Fabricio Alvarado denies accusations that he's exploiting people's religious beliefs to his own advantage.
They've said we're using religion to win votes, but we aren't. We've only told Costa Ricans we plan to be of benefit to everyone, even those who belong to other religions.
In another closing ceremony in San Jose, Acción Ciudadana stressed concepts that matter to the country, both inside and out.
People want to hear peace, democracy, respect for both human rights and the environment when they hear the name Costa Rica.
Many political parties and social movements support Carlos Alvarado and his team.
It's not like any other moment in history when you have all of these political parties trying to help Costa Rica.
The Supreme Electoral Committee officially announced the electoral blackout that comes into effect on Thursday.
We intend to stop political discussion so that voters can reflect on their decision for a final time.
Both parties are neck and neck according to the polls, but we will only know for sure on Sunday, April 1st.
In Chile, the trial against Mapuche leader Machi Francisco Lincanao and 11 other Mapuche activists continues. The Mapuche activists are being persecuted for their alleged responsibility in the deaths of businessman Warner Lutzinger and his wife Vivian Mackay in 2013. The trial takes place after an appeals court invalidated their acquittal. Machi Francisca Lincolnau supporters have criticized what they consider to be an unfair trial. They say this is a deliberate persecution of the Mapuche people who are defending their land.
She's going to prove her innocence in the next trial, and Chile will have to ask for forgiveness. The Chilean state must ask for forgiveness for what it has done against this Mapuche woman. Just because she faced the big companies and businessmen, she has been prosecuted, chased, and attacked.
In Argentina, 6 protesters detained in the northern province of Jujuy have been released. They were detained while campaigning next to the regional government headquarters against the closure of 4 public education centers. Our correspondent Sabrina Roth brings us the details.
Saludos en estudio, saludos a toda la audiencia de teleSUR.
4 students, a counselor, Andrea Gutierrez, and lawyer Hector Giuseppe have been released after being arrested hours before during a demonstration in the Jujuy province against the closure of 4 centers for youth and adult education. Their detention is difficult to justify as they were in the street protesting peacefully and did not so much as interrupt traffic. Those arrested had just helped to install a tent in front of the government house that was occupied by 30 students. 3 days following this peaceful protest, the answer from the government has once again been repression and political persecution against those who are fighting for their rights.
Award-winning Mexican filmmakers have joined demands for information on the whereabouts of 3 missing film students. Relatives of the students joined hundreds of others to protest in Mexico City on Thursday. The 3 students were last seen on March 19th in Guadalajara while filming a class project. Academy Award-winning director Alfonso Cuarón and cinematographer Emmanuel Lubezki have written an open letter demanding the government find the missing students and take legal action against those involved. And the Academy Award-winning director Guillermo del Toro retweeted several messages to his 1.36 million followers with the hashtags, "We're not 3, it's all of us." Every Peruvian president to have served over the last 28 years has either been to prison or has been investigated for corruption, according to the polls. The vast majority of the population believe that entrenched corruption in the Andean nation has undermined democracy.
Marches against corruption are becoming more frequent, and they've been growing in size.
I'm realizing what I live. I'm seeing the country in which I live. It's unfortunate and it's harming Peru.
We lack a good education, good health, because they are busy filling their pockets. We want the congressional rats to get out immediately.
In 1993, Alberto Fujimori staged a coup, saying the country's dire economy had to be dealt with. He changed the constitution in favor of business-friendly policies. Commentators say that put economic power in the hands of the political class and reduced the role of public institutions. Surveys show that stoked distrust in politicians.
Governments respond to large companies and large monopolies and have neglected their duty to meet the needs of people, health and education. Roads are bad, people do not receive state benefits, and that's why people are unhappy with this so-called democracy.
Operation Car Wash is an ongoing criminal investigation by Brazil into money laundering and corruption, and it unmasked many high-ranking officials, including former presidents Pedro Pablo Kuczynski and Alan Garcia. Ex-President Alejandro Toledo has an extradition order, and another former leader, Ollanta Humala, is in prison for corruption.
It doesn't end with corruption. This is a system of influence that advantages 12 power groups and 24 transnational corporations, and their armies of lawyers, specialists, and consultants who end up in ministries or who go forth and buy the will of the Congress people.
In the streets, people shout, "May they all go," as progressive groups call for urgent electoral reform and a new constitution that will see to the needs of Peruvians and not just those in power.
The Prime Minister of Dominica, Roosevelt Skerrit, has announced that he has secured over $100 million from the World Bank to mitigate the damage from last year's Hurricane Maria. Out of that, $40 million will be allocated to home reconstruction. Skerrit says the plan is to construct 5,000 new houses with the funds. Easter is a time when many Venezuelans travel around the country to enjoy the holiday. This year, over 7 million citizens have taken a trip to enjoy their days off.
Beaches, resorts, and national parks are filled to the brim. Venezuelan families are enjoying their well-deserved holidays, relaxing and having fun.
Our first option is the beach. As a proper Venezuelan from La Guaira, life is better by the sea.
Beaches, such as these in Vargas State, are undoubtedly a favorite destination for Venezuelans to spend their holidays. Furthermore, this year, the government has set up 130 areas like these across the country to enjoy cultural, recreational, and sporting activities, with concerts planned for the remainder of the week. Over 195,000 security officials will be deployed around the country to ensure that these holidays are spent peacefully and without incident.
Venezuelans are always jovial. We make every effort to bring the kids, to spend time with family. We all came for a change in scenery.
At recreational and cultural festivals, you can find tournaments for beach volleyball, chess, long jump, sprinting, and dominoes.
Venezuela is the most beautiful place in the world. Its people, its places, there's nothing better. You can't compare it to other countries. Ours are the best beaches. We are Caribbean, hot-blooded Latinos, which is why we love the beach.
According to official figures, over 7 million Venezuelans have mobilized during Easter holiday, and this is expected to continue through Sunday.
We're going to take a short break, but join us again after a look at what our multimedia colleagues are reporting. Welcome back. Russian diplomats are being flown back to Russia after being expelled from Washington, D.C. This follows a diplomatic row with the United States. The U.S. and several other nations have expelled their Russian diplomats over the poisoning of Sergei Skripal and his daughter Yulia. Russia, in turn, has closed its St. Petersburg embassy and expelled U.S. diplomats. The Egyptian President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi has won a landslide election victory with 92% of the vote, according to initial reports. His only opponent in this three-day election, Musa Mustafa Musa from the El Ghad party, got 3%. Other opposition candidates were either barred from standing or left the race, following arrest and intimidation. Sisi came into office in 2014 after he led the military coup against the former president, Mohamed Morsi. Now let's have a look at some of the other stories making headlines around the world.
Hundreds of people in Japan protested outside the Prime Minister's office in Tokyo as the corruption scandal involving Prime Minister Shinzo Abe and his wife, Aki, continues to develop. Protesters carried banners calling for Abe's resignation. Abe's wife is accused of pushing for the heavily discounted sale of public land to a right-wing primary school. Russian military officials have said they've reached an agreement with rebels in the Syrian town of Dalma in eastern Ghouta for the rebels to leave the town. Dalma is surrounded by Syrian government forces and there are tens of thousands of civilians there.
In avoiding needless casualties, the Russian Center for the Reconciliation of Warring Parties has achieved agreement with the leaders of Ahrar al-Sham on the evacuation of troops of this group from the Arasta al-Basal.
Chinese Foreign Affairs Representative Yang Jiechi held talks with South Korean President Moon Jae in Seoul, with both sides pledging to promote a political settlement of the Korean Peninsula issue. Yang said tensions are easing and the overall situation could turn around for good. He urged all parties involved to promote smooth talks between the South Korean and DPRK leaders.
Well, the World Wrap has taken us to the end of this newscast, but for these and many other stories, you can find them on our website at telesurtv.net/English. You can also join us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. For TeleSUR English, I'm Suni Gray. Thank you so much for watching.
A man who inspired a continent.
Era un hombre demasiado humilde, igual que uno, y andaba junto con uno.
A current idea on every corner of his town.
En Chávez está una lectura originalísima de nuestra realidad.
Hugo Chavez, a man with dreams. On Sunday, only on TeleSUR.
TeleSUR features the developments of science and technology that innovate and make the world go around.
Eso es Átomo, transmitimos desde América Latina. Bienvenidos, bienvenidas.
Technology available to everybody. Atomon. Mondays, only on TeleSUR.
Un pueblo es su memoria, de dónde venimos, quiénes somos, para poder decir a dónde vamos. Cuando me preguntan qué personajes de la revolución del siglo XX en América Latina me conmueven, me vienen de inmediato a la cabeza tres nombres. El primero es el Che, el segundo es Pancho Villa y el tercero es Antonio Guiteras. Ahora tengo más raíces, ahora sé de dónde vengo.
Pudo marcar en la revolución cubana, en la juventud y que hoy en nuestros días es todavía un ejemplo y un paradigma para nosotros.
Y habría que añadir uno de los nuestros.
Los nuestros. Tuesdays, only on TeleSUR. Community organization and revolutionary verse fused in And Don't Stop. A window to urban culture and political resistance, conducted by the hip-hop band Rebel Deers. And Don't Stop, Fridays, only on TeleSUR. A sign of resistance to hatred and injustice, Bill Fletcher Jr. conducts a discussion and analysis space to reveal the social struggles of Black people on the global Africa. Wednesdays, only on TeleSUR.
The people of Antigua and Barbuda went to the polls in order to exercise their democratic right. TeleSUR came along with this West Indian nation to offer you the best information on this presidential election. You followed closely this election on our website in English and Spanish and on our social media. Coverage Antigua and Barbuda 2018 decides. Only on teleSUR, the news source from South America and the Caribbean.
During all this time, they have been with us to report the realities shivering the world, supporting and sharing our victories. Due to their work, we are currently in more places and will still be in the voice of the people. The news source from Latin America and the Caribbean.
Belme pa mamá, mamá se mamá. Belme pa mamá.
Mira, Piedad, Haití y Dominicana somos las dos alas de una misma paloma.
Estoy de negro porque estoy de luto. La nueva Constitución establece que los hijos de inmigrantes irregulares o ilegales, como dice la Constitución, no tienen derecho a la nacionalidad.
Y a partir del 2007 se han venido cometiendo varios atropellos en contra de los dominicanos y dominicanas de ascendencia haitiana.
Nunca se ha visto en el mundo que personas que ya hayan adquirido su nacionalidad por una resolución administrativa se le niegue ese derecho.
Porque yo no creo que ningún país del mundo pueda relativizar las leyes de tal manera que impidan que unas personas puedan ejercer su ciudadanía, y es en este caso el de los haitianos.
Más o menos yo creo que una persona, por ejemplo, si nació en Estados Unidos, tiene que ser estadounidense.
Claro.
Si nació en República Dominicana, tiene que ser dominicano.
Después de que utilizaron por años nuestros padres para cortar la caña, para beneficiarse del azúcar con la que endulzaban su café, ya no son útiles. Cuando anteriormente era Juan Teófilo Javier, nunca tuve problemas, pero después que tuve el apellido de mi padre, Juan Teófilo Murat, entonces empezaron los problemas.
Hola, mi nombre es Rosalba Yan, tengo 22 años. Nací en República Dominicana, pero no tengo un documento que compruebe que nací aquí. La discriminación que hay aquí por ser descendiente de haitiana. Y le voy a leer una breve historia que escribí. Mi vida. Mi madre desde niña llegó a este país. Desde muy joven comenzó a trabajar como una empleada doméstica. Luego nos tuvo a nosotros sus 5 hijos. Cuando nos tuvo, ella no tenía ningún documento para poder declararnos. Pasa el tiempo, ella intenta declararnos, pero le dicen que tiene que estar legal. Ella comienza todos sus procedimientos, va a la embajada haitiana, se declara y tiene su acta de nacimiento. Luego hace los trámites de su pasaporte, después los trámites de residencia. Como no tiene recursos para pagar un abogado, se detuvo el procedimiento. Pero luego, en el 2005, una familia, donde ella era empleada, comenzaron a darle ayuda pagándole un abogado. Obtuvo su primera residencia por 1 año. Luego, en el 2007, comenzó con los trámites de nuestra declaración, de mí y mis 4 hermanos. Fue a la 12ª oficialía donde nos tenía que declarar. Se la negaron la mandan a la embajada de Haití y estando allá pide ayuda. Le dicen que no están declarando y que era en República Dominicana que habíamos nacido y que la declaración nos tocaba aquí.
Mari.
Hola.
¿Cómo estás?
Bien, bien, gracias.
¿Cómo te ha ido?
Bien.
¿Tus hijos?
Sí, mis hijos. Tengo a Rosalba, que ya usted la conoce.
Sí.
Tengo a Rosa Altagracia, que no estás aquí. Rosa Altagracia tiene 20 años. Tengo a Rosana. Rosa Altagracia, por falta de documentos, está trabajando como niñera. Usted sabe, aquí, si no tiene documentos, no puede trabajar ni en una zona franca.
¿Ellas nacieron aquí?
Sí, todos mis hijos nacieron aquí.
¿Y por qué no tienen documentos?
Bueno, no tiene documentos. Primeramente, cuando nacieron, no lo declaré porque no tenía documentos.
Sentémonos allí.
En el 2006,
sí,
obtuve mi primera residencia provisional. Entonces, comencé los trámites de nuevo de la declaración tardía de mis hijos.
Sí.
Entonces ahí, por lo menos en el 2007, fui a depositar en cada oficialía correspondiente. Entonces la embajada me recomendaron, como yo no tenía cómo pagar un abogado, me recomendaron ir a MUDA. MUDA es una institución que ayuda a personas como yo que tenemos esos problemas. Cuando la abogada siguió y investigó y habló con ellos, entonces ahí decidieron mandar un comunicado a la Junta Central Electoral. Eso fue desde el 2007, ya en el 2009 todavía no teníamos noticias porque ellos cada vez que iba decían que no, que todavía, que la Junta no ha dicho nada, porque dice que ellos cuando nacieron, yo estaba ilegal en este país, por lo tanto, ellos no pueden tener un documento dominicano.
Entonces las tres Rosas quedaron sin documento también.
Entonces quedan sin documento. Hace 4 años ya Rosalba estuviera en la universidad. Ella pudo terminar el bachiller porque luché. Fui para la Secretaría de Educación y hubo muchas personas que tuvieron interés de ayudarme. Prácticamente su sueño, le han matado su sueño.
Profesor, estamos aquí con Causa Justa en República Dominicana. ¿Cuáles van a ser realmente los impactos que la ley migratoria puede tener sobre la población haitiana en general?
Bueno, el punto es que esa pregunta es importante. De alguna manera, esta nueva ley de migración es el producto, aunque mucha gente no lo quiera admitir, de una nueva realidad migratoria. No solo desde el punto de vista de la inmigración, sino también de la emigración. Este país es de los pocos países que no es solo un país migratorio porque hay cientos de miles de, sobre todo de nacionales haitianos residiendo acá, sino también porque alrededor de 1,5 millones de dominicanos vive en Estados Unidos. Entonces, para poder nosotros pedir trato justo a nuestros emigrados, debiéramos, en justa ley, tener un trato semejante hacia nuestros inmigrantes.
La Constitución establece, eso sí hay un cambio radical allí, porque antes de la Constitución, todo el que nacía en territorio dominicano era dominicano. Pero la Constitución ahora establece que los descendientes de ilegales no son dominicanos, aunque hayan nacido acá.
Since the beginning of the 20th century, the Haitian workforce has been very important to the Dominican Republic. The sudden disappearance of the Haitian workforce would affect the economic growth of this nation. However, the hostility toward the Haitians has been a common denominator of Dominican Republic migration policies. A recent example of this practice is the immigration law from 2004. Article 28 of this law established that foreign residents in the country who give birth must go to their respective consulate to register the child. This article of the law ignores the fact that many Haitians who came to the country as temporary workers or illegally have settled in the Dominican Republic. Even more aggressive is Article 283, which strips thousands of Dominican-born people of Haitian descent of their Dominican citizenship. The reason given is that because their parents were not legally residents in the country, their birth certificates are not valid. With respect to the normalization of temporal workers, the law establishes that the employers are responsible for upholding the established rights and work conditions. The employers are also responsible for providing transport, costs of traveling, and repatriation of workers. The businessmen who take advantage of Haitian labor already living illegally in the country seldom follow these requirements. The immigration law from 2004 is directed at the 6% of Dominicans that, according to calculations, consist of Haitians and their descendants, for whom their parents' country of origin is foreign to them. These descendants consider themselves Dominicans, although in reality they don't legally have a country to call home, and are condemned to civil death.
Nos llegó un regalo anteayer, entonces nosotros dijimos, no, para los muchachos y muchachas de San Pedro de Macorís, que siempre están tan encendidos en la lucha y que siempre están tan comprometidos. El primer saludo que me dio una gente que no conocía es, aquí tiene una nueva aliada para la causa. Y digo, yo ese es San Pedro de Macorís, ese proceso que llevamos. Un aplauso a Piedad Córdoba.
Bueno, muy buenos días a todas y a todos. Hemos creído que una de nuestras causas justas, una de nuestras luchas es precisamente la lucha por el pueblo haitiano y su reconocimiento, su reivindicación, su dignidad, partiendo de la base de lo que significó y lo que ha significado Haití en la lucha por la independencia y en la lucha por la defensa de los derechos humanos, civiles y políticos que en América hemos reconocido grandemente.
Nosotros no simplemente estamos siendo discriminados, sino que estamos siendo maltratados en todo el sentido de la palabra. No tienes acceso a entrar a la universidad, tú tienes un niño, no tienes el acceso a declarar ese niño, ni a otorgarle a este niño, como me decía una de las compañeras esta mañana. Yo tuve la oportunidad que, aunque no me dejan entrar a la universidad, yo logré terminar el bachillerato, pero ¿qué hago con mi niño, que ahora es que va a cumplir 3 años y ni siquiera lo puedo inscribir ni en seguro médico ni en la escuela?
Si uno no tiene ni cédula de ciudadanía, ni sabe de qué país es una persona que no tiene posibilidades de absolutamente nada. Y es una forma de esclavitud.
La ley establece que el Estado no incurre en actos ilegales. Y nos están diciendo a nosotros que otros documentos son irregulares, pero fueron documentos emitidos por un organismo del Estado, el organismo que está facultado para ello.
Por eso Causa Justa está aquí, para visibilizarlo, pero más allá de hacerlo visible, para trabajar con ustedes a ver de qué manera nosotros somos capaces de abrir la puerta para que esto se solucione.
Pues desde el año pasado nosotros empezamos a preocuparnos porque al servicio jesuita, en nuestro programa de asistencia legal para migrantes y descendientes, cada día iban llegando más casos de personas que ya habían sido declarados como dominicanos, y sin embargo cuando iban a buscar un acta de nacimiento, la oficialía civil correspondiente se negaba a entregarle el documento. Entonces es realmente un abuso de poder muy grande por parte de la Junta Central Electoral. Todo el mundo estaba aislado en su proceso, no sabía lo que les pasaba, por qué les pasaba, a quiénes más les pasaba, y decidimos empezar un proceso de organización de esas personas.
Estoy de negro porque estoy de luto. De luto porque hay un sinnúmero de dominicanos que ya han muerto civilmente, que después de que utilizaron por años nuestros padres para cortar la caña, para beneficiarse del azúcar con la que endulzaban su café, ya no son útiles. En la historia se escribirá esto que se sucede hoy, porque todos los que estamos aquí, nacimos aquí, comimos esta comida que la ganaron con sudor de su frente nuestros padres, y hoy nos limitan porque no quieren que nosotros seamos ni doctores, ni abogados, y como no hay caña, quieren que nosotros seamos indigentes. De la opulencia a muchos nos han llevado a la indigencia.
Córrete para allá, mi amor. ¿Y entonces qué? ¿Tú duermes en esto?
Sí.
¿Cuánto hace que vives aquí?
2.
2 años.
Sí.
¿Y antes dónde vivías?
En Haití.
¿Y por qué te viniste?
Cuando pasando el mundo iba allá.
¿Terremoto?
Sí.
En los años 80 del siglo XX, la economía azucarera entró en declive. Al entrar en declive se redujeron las áreas de siembra de la caña porque se redujo la demanda, se comenzó a desmontar gran parte del sector azucarero, bueno, porque ya los precios habían caído, hasta de hace unos 5 o 6 años que comenzaron a crecer. Eso provocó, ¿qué cosa? Que ya teníamos una población haitiana residiendo en el país que no encontraba dónde insertarse.
Pero hay una cosa que viola cualquier principio universal de los derechos humanos y es que la persona podía venir a trabajar pero tenía que volver. Y podía darse el caso de que una persona que tuviera buen rendimiento, que de pronto tuviera buena iniciativa, pudiera, como dice uno popularmente, echar raíces aquí.
La zafra es temporal, la zafra es dentro del año, tiene una temporalidad. Entonces, obviamente que no se quería que echaran raíces porque la idea era que vinieran a trabajar y se devolvieran para suplir una necesidad de mano de obra. Pero eso tiene su sentido, porque imagínense que se permita a toda la población que entra, que se quede, el impacto sería devastador para una economía tan endeble como siempre ha sido la economía de República Dominicana.
Bueno, dile que yo le quiero dar un saludo.
Y dile saludar.
Bonjour. 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 Bonjour, madame.
Bonjour, mamá.
Bonjour, mamá. ¿Cuántos años tenías cuando llegaste de Haití?
24 años. 24.
¿Tú tienes papeles?
Y mando sus papeles. No, pagué papier haitiano, pagué papier. ¿Que tiene papier para allá? Ella tiene hijos que no tienen papel, nacieron aquí.
Sí. Este es el escaparate. Te lo dieron apenas en el 2002.
Sí.
Y se aspiró en el 2007.
Sí.
O sea que ella en este momento no tiene papeles. ¿Cómo le pagan? Sabiendo que no tiene papeles.
No, le da un vale.
¿Este es un vale?
Sí, señor.
600 pesos. ¿Y entonces usted qué hace con este vale?
Ese vale te va al colmado. Si lo va a gastar todo, lo gasta en comida.
Vivir aquí en los batalles sin documento es algo difícil, con el cual no impiden que podamos echar hacia adelante, más los hijos de los inmigrantes haitianos, que ya tienen muchas décadas aquí en el país. Entonces, al llegar ellos, se enamoran, tienen hijos. Al no tener su documento, lo que le pegan a los hijos es ir a picar caña y la hembra casarse temprano porque no tienen un desarrollo con el cual podemos decir, bueno, con eso vamos a vivir en el mañana.
Mira, Piedad, nosotros hemos vivido de espalda a Haití en un proceso de desinformación, en un proceso discriminatorio y racista. La clase dominante dominicana han ideologizado la racionalidad de querer plantear de que Haití es el país más pobre de América por su religión, por el vudú,
sí,
que es una religión de salvaje, que es una religión
de ignorantes,
de negros,
sí,
diabólica. Sin embargo, la realidad nos dice que Haití tiene esa pobreza por los saqueos de los imperios.
Sí.
Los imperios han sido los responsables de la pobreza de Haití. Entonces, no es posible, por ejemplo, que nosotros podamos vivir de espalda a Haití.
Sí.
Lo decía Haití, somos las dos alas de una misma paloma.
Sí. ¿Cuándo comienza realmente a visibilizarse este problema de la migración haitiana hacia República Dominicana y cómo se va reflejando en el tiempo?
La cuestión migratoria no siempre ha sido un problema serio entre los dos países. Por la parte de Haití, que fue el primer país de América, como se sabe, que logró su independencia, se entendía que era su obligación liberar la otra parte de la isla. Y ellos ocupan la otra parte en el entendido de que están liberando su isla, que están liberando el país. Probablemente en ese momento no se entendió y los libertadores haitianos no entendieron que ya se había generado una identidad diferente en la parte española de la isla.
The history of the Haitian migration towards Dominican Republic goes back to the end of the 19th century. The national labour market started to become insufficient for the growing Dominican sugarcane industry. In 1915, the United States started their bloody occupation of Haiti, which lasted for 19 years. The United States occupied the Dominican Republic for 8 years in 1916. In 1919, the occupying governments from both countries encouraged the Haitian migration toward Cuba and Dominican Republic to work in the sugarcane plantations belonging to North Americans. In 1930, the dictator, Rafael Leonidas Trujillo, takes over the Dominican Republic government. His plan consists of the re-establishment of the country based on a deep anti-Haitian sentiment and the exaltation of European racism. In 1937, as a plan to control the borders between the two countries, Trujillo orders to kill any Haitian that cannot show Dominican identity papers. Between 12,000 and 30,000 Haitian citizens are killed. In 1952, the governments of Haiti and Dominican Republic sign an agreement for a supply of Haitian temporal workers to the Dominican sugarcane industry. The agreement was in place until 1986. In 1962, 2 sugarcane plantations belonging to Trujillo are nationalized. In 1966, the Sugar State Board is secured. This board starts to manage 12 sugarcane plantations belonging to Trujillo. In 1983, a report by the International Labour Organization, OLT, reveals the buying and selling of Haitian nationals conducted between the government of Puerto Príncipe and the Dominican Republic Sugar State Board. This report also states that this labour is kept in dire and helpless obedience to serve government and private interests with the help of foreign aid. The reasons for these labour conditions are the same held by the slave traders from 2 centuries earlier. Short-term profit was the main motive of the abuse, together with the ignorance and apathy of the consumer that favour cheap products. In the 80s, the fall of international sugar prices results in the crisis of the Dominican sugar industry. In the last 20 years, the diversification of the Dominican economy towards other agricultural, services and construction sectors continues to rely on Haitian labour.
El auge de la construcción en República Dominicana es increíblemente grande y hay una presencia muy grande de trabajadores, fundamentalmente hombres haitianos, que tienen muchísimos problemas para obtener su ciudadanía aquí. ¿Cómo lo ven ustedes desde la perspectiva laboral y sindical?
Es una realidad los trabajadores haitianos en la construcción. El Código Civil y el Código de Trabajo limitan la cantidad de trabajadores en las obras. Pero
¿Cuánto es el porcentaje de que autoriza la legislación?
Un 20%, pero con su estatus migratorio legal, no ilegal.
El impacto de la mano de obra haitiana en la economía dominicana es dual. dinamiza la economía, es verdad, beneficia al empresario, es verdad, pero también contribuye al deterioro de las condiciones y del salario del resto de los trabajadores por la competencia hacia la baja en los salarios.
Ahora, ¿qué pasa? Hay mucha compañía constructora, ingenieros, que prefieren trabajar con trabajadores haitianos ilegales porque de esa manera ellos evaden el pago de la seguridad social, ese trabajador no se le paga hora extra, los trabajadores haitianos viven en las construcciones.
Hay que entender primero, Piedad, la historia de Haití. Es una historia trágica. El primer país del Nuevo Mundo que al proclamar su independencia abolió la esclavitud. Entonces había el temor por parte de los dueños de esclavos y plantaciones en toda esta región que el ejemplo haitiano se reprodujera.
A mí me parece muy importante también, cuando hablamos de las migraciones, el papel tan difícil que ha sido para República Dominicana, sobre todo como país receptor, pero también para los haitianos de no contar con otros países de la región, porque yo diría que, como decimos los afrodescendientes, el que no tiene de dinga tiene de mandinga, y todos los haitianos o todos los dominicanos, el que no tiene de haitiano tiene de dominicano. ¿Qué va a pasar ahí, presidente?
Yo creo que la causa de Haití es la causa de todos. El drama haitiano es un drama que debe estremecernos a todos. Y por tanto es una obligación moral en estos momentos comprometernos todos con una estrategia de desarrollo de Haití para que ese país pueda tener autosuficiencia alimentaria, para que ese país tenga acceso a lo que son los elementos de la vida moderna, al agua potable, a la electrificación, a un sistema de educación, de saneamiento ambiental, de salud, lo básico, lo fundamental, para que pueda incorporarse en condiciones dignas a la comunidad internacional.
No he podido tener un buen empleo, o sea, no he podido viajar, he tenido oportunidad y tampoco he podido por la falta de documentación. Tuve mucho conflicto con los estudios. Mi sueño es ser una pediatra, la pediatra más importante de todo el mundo.
Eugenio, ¿y tú qué vas a hacer, mi amor? Ven para acá.
Lo que yo quiero estudiar es ingeniería industrial.
¿Y estás preocupado por el problema que tienes? ¿Por qué? A ver, dime.
Porque mi madre tiene muchos años luchando con eso.
Sí.
Y la Junta como que no quieren que nosotros tengamos nuestros documentos.
Porque la verdad yo pienso que si tal vez mi país fuera mejor o más condiciones, no estuviéramos pasando lo que estamos pasando aquí mucho. Y somos muchos nacionalidades haitianas que estamos pasando eso.
Bueno, pero Causa Justa vino precisamente porque estábamos muy preocupados con este tema. Así que esperamos que cuando algún día nos volvamos a encontrar ya sepamos que estás en la universidad. Dame un abrazo.
Yo estoy indignada humanamente por todo lo que está pasando con los hijos e hijas de migrantes. Es una injusticia toda.